Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, Text 29. Upayeme, vīrya-paṇāṁ, vaidarbhīṁ, malayadhvajaḥ, yudhi, nirjitya, rājanyān, pāṇḍyaḥ, para-purañjayaḥ, upayeme vīrya-paṇāṁ, vaidarbhīṁ malayadhvaja, yudhi nirjitya rājanyān, pāṇḍyaḥ para-purañjayaḥ, upayeme vīrya-paṇāṁ, vaidarbhīṁ malayadhvaja, yudhi nirjitya rājanyān, pāṇḍyaḥ para-purañjayaḥ, upayeme vīrya-paṇāṁ, vaidarbhīṁ malayadhvaja, nirjitya rājanyān, pāṇḍyaḥ para-purañjayaḥ. Hare Krishna. Upayeme vīrya-paṇāṁ, vaidarbhīṁ malayadhvaja, yudhi nirjitya rājanyān, pāṇḍyaḥ para-purañjayaḥ. Here we have been reading the story of King Puranjan for the past few months. Over here it is being described that Vaidarbhī, the god, the daughter of King Vidarbha, was married to a powerful man named Malayadhvaja. This Vaidarbhī is none else but King Puranjan. He took his next birth as the daughter of King Vidarbha. Because at the moment of death, he was just thinking about his wife. Yam yam vapi svaran bhavam. Wherever your mind is at the moment of death, that's what the living entity enters into. Therefore, it is very important that a human life be molded in such a way that at the moment of death we can think of Krishna. King Puranjan was very attached to his wife, children. As you've been reading this chapter, he was lamenting how will his wife look after his children, etc. Actually, as you know, this is an allegorical study. It's an allegorical story. Puranjan actually means the enjoyer of the body. So, because he was thinking about, he was deeply attached to his wife, and he was thinking about his wife, so in his next birth he had to take on the body of a woman. As it explained, the living entity at the moment of death generally tends to think about the subject matter that he has been thinking about all along. So if you've been accustomed to thinking about material activities all along, then there's a good chance at the moment of death, that's where your mind will be. And if you're accustomed to thinking of spiritual subject matters, then there's a good chance at the moment of death you'll be thinking of spiritual subject matters. Krishna consciousness teaches us the art of living and the art of dying. As it is said, Ante Narayan Smriti. This is the perfection of life. At the moment of death, we'll be thinking of Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 5th canto, you read the very famous story of King Bharat. King Bharat was a very handsome, rich king. He renounced the world, retired to the forest, started practicing austerities in the forest. But, as we know, he got attached to a deer. And he got so attached to the deer that he could not bear the separation from the deer even for a moment. Even if the deer would be out of sight for a minute, he would get worried. And so one day when the deer was out of sight, the king was searching for the deer, and was searching for the deer. He died, and hence in his next birth, he had to take his birth as a deer. And Krishna also says that devotional service rendered never goes in vain. So he did not have to stay for long in the body of a deer, because he had also executed pious activities, and he then soon took birth in the family of a Brahmana. So this is very important that we learn the art of meditating on the Lord. We hear about this all the time in our lectures. We read about this all the time in the purport. So there should be no doubt with regards to these statements of the scriptures. Now, the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another, and all this is being executed under superior supervision. So, based on how we act, based on our record of pious and impious activities, the superior authorities decide our next birth. Devahoti wanted to know how will it ascertain, how will the next birth ascertain. So Lord Kapila explains, Kamana deva netrena jantu deho papate striya pravishto dharam pum saveta kanashvaya, that the activities of the living entities are all being witnessed by a variety, a number of demigods. Deva netrena. Deva means demigods, netrena means eyes, and kamana means based on your activities, which are all being witnessed by a variety of different demigods. So we should not think that regardless of how we act, we'll get the same body, or regardless of how we act, there will be no consequences. So the superiors, headed by Yamaraj, are very accurate in their assessment, and based on our activities, then begin our next birth. King Puranjan, although he had also displayed excessive attachment to his wife, but he had also done pious activities. Thus he was given a chance to become the daughter of a powerful king. Just like Krishna says that if you've done pious activities, then you either take birth in an aristocratic family or in a devotional or a foreign family of Brahmanas. Service to the Lord never goes in vain. Generally one is given birth in a pious family, Brahmana's family, so that from his young age he may hear about the importance of spiritual life. And generally one is awarded birth in a rich family, so that he may not have to worry about his economic necessities of life, and he can concentrate on spiritual activity. So as a result, King Puranjan was given birth in a very rich king's family as his daughter. The nature of devotional services, even though they're done, stands to one's eternal credit. So King Puranjan in his next life was known as Vaidarbhī, the daughter of King Vidarbha. And the daughter was arranged to be married to a very powerful king of a country called Pāṇḍu. The king was known as King Malayadhvaja. So, Prabhupada in the purport is explaining many important points that we'll touch upon. First of all, Prabhupada explains how, in the Vedic system, the kings would select their brides. The husband for Draupadi was selected by many princes were invited, and they had to pierce the eye of a fish, but not by looking at the fish, but by looking at the reflection of the fish in the water. So that was the Vedic system. Now this king had been described as a very powerful king who was also a great devotee. As Prabhupada is explaining, this king was a great devotee who was as strong as the Himalaya hills. So a devotee who's fixed in the path of devotional service, he can defeat all other Vedic, all other conceptions such as jnana, karma and yoga. In other words, through the process of devotional service, one can eventually capture Ajita, the unconquerable Lord. In the purport, Prabhupada explains that the Supreme Lord is unconquerable, Ajita. We've heard this many times before, how the Supreme Lord is unconquerable. So the Supreme Lord is unconquerable, but he becomes conquered by his devotee. Just like Lord Brahma, in describing the very wonderful transcendental qualities of the Lord, says, Vedasu dullabam adullabam atma bhakto. That if you try to understand the Supreme Lord just by studying the Vedas, then you will not be able to understand him. But one who becomes my devotee, one who becomes a devotee of the Lord, can understand the transcendental qualities of the Lord. The point is, to become a devotee actually is a big thing. But when you embark on the path of devotional service, you're embarking on a path by which you endeavor to purify your mind and senses. A devotee's desire is to please the Lord. A devotee's desire is to give up everything that's unfavorable for spiritual advancement to realize the real goal of life. So, the Supreme Lord, who is unconquerable, can become conquered by one who takes to the process of devotional service according to rules and regulations. So taking to the process of devotional service means following rules and regulations. It is not something that is concocted. Devotional service means to realize that by worshipping, executing austerities, and practicing regulative principles, one will be able to control the mind and the senses. Devotional service means to recognize that by worshipping, practicing austerities, and following the regulative principles, one will be able to gain control over the mind and the senses. Rupa Goswami describes the characteristics of devotional service in Nectar of Devotion. He describes that it is very rarely achieved because through this medium, Krishna becomes even subservient to his devotee. It can free one from the miseries of birth and death. Devotional service is the means through which one can terminates a sinful activity and he can develop love for the Supreme Lord. So, those that take to the path of devotional service are very fortunate. Bhavanam janmanamante jnanamamam prapadante vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatmas durlabha. After many, many births, he is the fortunate soul who takes to the path of devotional service. Prahlād Maharaj was asked by his father what were the best things that he learned in school. So Prahlād Maharaj described the ninefold process of devotional service that he had heard when he was in the womb of his mother. Govinda Das says, some of the other take shelter of Hari, Bhaja Hari Pada Nitya, take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Hari. He says that his human life is like a drop of water in a lotus leaf. It can fall off the leaf at any time. So how do we perform devotional service? How do we take shelter of the Lord? And that is described through the medium of the ninefold process of devotional service. So this ninefold process begins with the process of hearing and chanting. After all, when we talk about devotional service, what do we talk? We're talking about the process of engaging the mind and senses in service to the Lord and thereby purifying ourselves and getting free of the designations. As Narada Muni explains, Sarva Pade Vinir Mukyam Tat Pravena Nirmalam Rishikina Rishikina Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. That by engaging the mind and the senses and service of Rishikesha, one becomes purified and free of these designations. So, chanting and hearing forms the basis of a strong spiritual life. What do we chant and hear about? We chant and hear about the glories of the Lord. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the Lord is so kind that He has invested all His transcendental energies in His holy name. In other words, there is no difference between the holy names of the Lord and the Lord, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and the Lord. So as we chant and absorb ourselves in this process, the heart begins to get cleansed. And attentive chanting hearing gives us the ability to get to the next stage, which is remembrance of the Lord. As we were saying earlier, wherever the mind is at the moment of death, that's where the living entity eventually occurs. So Vishnu Smarana means remembrance of the Lord, and one can practice this in many ways. Meditate on Nama, Rupa, Leela, Guna. These are just some examples. Last night we were describing some ways how to meditate on the Lord. The great sages have given us these 4 headings to absorb ourselves in. So meditating on Nama, how do you practically do this? Meditate on how powerful a holy name is. How the Lord is so kind that He's invested all His energies in the holy name. How the holy name is a special benediction for this age. Just like when King Parikshit asked, how will people in Kali-yuga be saved? The GKG Goswāmī replied, Kali-yuga nirjitya asti-ekam mahaguna. This Kali-yuga is nothing but an ocean of white. But this one benediction in the age, that is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Avoiding the 10 offenses, then the holy name will produce love of God. Then you meditate on the many wonderful pastimes of the Lord, known as Leela. Right from in the Bhagavatam, you read about so many wonderful pastimes of the Lord. And these pastimes are all inconceivable to the mundane mind. Then Krishna's unlimited spiritual qualities. One of the qualities of the Lord is, with any one part of his body, he can perform the function of any other part. We can perform only a particular function with one part of our body, but the Lord can perform any function with any one part of his body. So Krishna has unlimited qualities. Situated in one place, he is present everywhere. How is Advaita, Achyuta, infallible, no difference between his body and soul. How he manifests himself in a variety of different forms, Ananta Rupa. You read in the Bhagavatam about so many incarnations of the Lord. So we can meditate how the Lord appears in so many different forms, how He is unlimited. Then meditate on Krishna's Rupa, his wonderful transcendental form. And in ISKCON you have so many beautiful deities. So somehow or the other, absorb the mind in Krishna's Nama, Rupa, Leela and Guna. And by absorbing ourselves in these 4 subject matters, eventually one will be able to conquer or understand the Supreme Lord is unconquerable. In the purport, Prabhupada is talking about Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means a place where there is no anxiety. And Kuntha Loka means a place where there is nothing but anxiety. So presently, we are in Kuntha Loka, where there is nothing but anxiety. Doesn't matter how hard you endeavor, you can't escape the miseries of life and anxiety. In ignorance, people think that by making some material adjustment, they will be able to conquer over the miseries of life. As Prahlād Maharaj says, Na te vidum svata katen Vishnu, durasya bhad arthamanina, andhaya thamded upaniya manas. The people do not know what is the real path of happiness, how real problems can be solved. But the devotee, as Prabhupada says here, by strong devotional service and attachment to the Supreme Lord, can conquer over the Lord. So what does it mean by strong devotional service? Prabhupada very clearly says by strong devotional service one can develop attachment. So that means we execute devotional service with full determination and conviction. If devotional service is executed with full conviction and determination, without any deviation, then we can definitely make spiritual advancement. Rupa Goswami gives us some guidelines how we can execute devotional service with determination and without deviation. Utsaha nishya dharya tatkar karma pravartanat sangatyage sato sabbir bhakti siddhati. How does devotional service blossom, he explains. Be enthusiastic. But you can be enthusiastic only of something that you really want. So our goal should be that we want to be Krishna conscious. You should execute devotional service enthusiastically. Keep reminding yourself that this is the topmost activity one can possibly engage in. As we said earlier, Krishna reciprocates with our efforts. Then be determined. There may be so many impediments, but if we are determined, you'll be able to overcome these impediments. It's not on the devotional path, there won't be any impediments. You see, even in the lives of great devotees, that there were impediments. Even in the life of Śrīla Prabhupada, we saw that there were so many impediments when he was trying to establish Krishna consciousness, first in India and then in the West. But he was determined to endeavor to carry out the spiritual instructions that he was given. Then be patient, dharya. Don't expect that when you have come to this devotional path, everything's going to be exactly the way you want, or you'll realize Krishna instantly. Tat karma pravartana. Follow the path given by the great sages. One very unique thing we see in the Krishna conscious movement is Nothing is concocted. We're just following the path given by Prabhupada. Just gave us the path given by the great acharyas and the Lord, and give up worldly-minded, minimize worldly-minded association, and by taking advantage of spiritual association, you are able to develop these qualities. So the point is, the important thing is that we have to follow the path with determination and without deviation. In Kali Yuga, there's a big weakness, that is the weakness to speculate. And we have a tendency to speculate. So speculation should be avoided. So we do not speculate. When we are in doubt, we take the help of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Now the Lord is so kind, actually everybody is fearful of the Lord, isn't it? In the concluding lines of the purport, Prabhupada says that everyone is fearful of Krishna, but Krishna becomes fearful of the stick of Mother Yasoda. So this is a unique competition between the devotee and the Lord. The Lord is anxious to serve the devotee is anxious to serve the Lord. In the Bhagavatam you see that the Lord was carrying the slippers of his father. The Lord surrendered. His mother wanted to tie him with ropes, and every time the mother tried, the rope would be 2 fingers short. His mother tried, but she was feeling frustrated and she was unable to tie him down. Ultimately, Krishna said, my mother's trying so hard to tie me down, so he allowed to tie her down. So the point is that if we endeavor to become Krishna conscious, Krishna will reciprocate. But if we do not endeavor, then don't expect that you'll automatically become Krishna. As they say, God helps those who help themselves. So we endeavor to become Krishna conscious, if we endeavor to take advantage of the guidelines that have been given to us, then we definitely become Krishna conscious. The path of devotional service is so safe that even if you run on this path with your eyes closed, you will not fall. So the point is, devotional service executed, even if you execute a little bit, it stands to your eternal credit. We in the Krishna conscious movement are extremely fortunate because we have all that's needed. We have all the instruments that's needed to fight the force of the illusory energy. We have all the ammunition that is needed to win over this battle. We have the wonderful books that Śrīla Prabhupada gave us, which contains wonderful explanation of the verses spoken by the Lord. We have these wonderful temples that Śrīla Prabhupada has created. We have the wonderful association of so many ISKCON devotees who are trying their best to fulfill Prabhupada's desire. So all we have to do is just take advantage, and the instructions are very, very clearly defined. And if we take advantage of it, then definitely there will be spiritual advantage. So the devotee's desire is, the devotee's vision is to please Krishna in all situations. Therefore, since the devotee's desire is to please Krishna in all situations, if something is unfavorable for spiritual advancement, he rejects that. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in explaining to Sanatana Goswami, said, accept what's favorable for spiritual advancement and reject what is unfavorable for spiritual advancement. So this should be our guiding principle, that we accept all favorable situations for spiritual advancement and reject what is unfavorable. What are some unfavorable conditions? The opposite of what's favorable. Not following the process of Vaidhi Bhakti, not practicing austerities, not engaging in proper worship, or endeavoring for material things, engaging in mundane talk, engaging in fault finding, not understanding the real purpose of following this Vedic conclusion. So the point is that we should use intelligence and be serious about Krishna consciousness and not waste even a minute. As Rupa Goswami describes, a devotee is anxious to utilize his time 24 hours a day in service to Lord. He doesn't want to waste even a minute. As Chanakya Pandit said, a minute lost cannot be made up with the wealth of the entire world. A devotee has full conviction that if I endeavor to follow the path given by Krishna and by his representatives, then Krishna's mercy will definitely come. Then hope that Krishna's mercy will come if I follow his instructions should never be given up. So as we execute the process, our conviction in Krishna consciousness becomes stronger and stronger. And another point that Prabhupada makes in the purport is, he explains the meaning of the word āṇḍyaḥ, which means knowledge. So with knowledge, we destroy ignorance. So to summarize the verse, in reading the story of King Pāṇḍu in King Puranjan, we are seeing that King Puranjan left his body, thinking about his wife, and then he had to take his birth as a woman. So it is very important that we learn the art of engaging the mind positively. But because the king had also done pious activities, he had the fortune of taking his birth in a rich king's family as a daughter. So the important point, as Prabhupada summarizes in the Prabhupada, is that the Supreme Lord, who is unconquerable, becomes conquered by one who executes devotional service with determination and without deviation. And devotional service is the only medium through which we can understand and capture the Supreme Lord. We don't speculate on the process, but follow the process as defined by the great acharyas. And this is a sure and safe process of spiritual advancement. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare